So now coming to Casey Camp, I'm very glad that you are here on the panel because I think you can tell a lot about successful resistance of indigenous peoples and also of other communities, hopefully. What do you think that we can learn from your struggles for other communities that are experiencing the occupation of their land to, in the future, avoid the damage of environmental land, for example, from gas fracking of natural gas, but also, of course, other kinds of energy projects. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you to the sacred water, air, and earth, sacred fire that brings us here today. I also want to acknowledge the indigenous people of this territories, no matter how far back that was. It's their bones we stand on. It is their spirits that enlighten us and give us words and a way to go forward. I would also acknowledge each of these panelists. Thank you for your words and your ability to share those words and knowledges that you have. And thank you to all of you that are here today, that are listening and encouraging us to help find ways forward. I come from the occupied territory of what's called Oklahoma in the United States. I'm a member of the Ponca Nation of Oklahoma. It's called Sacred Head in your language, Ponca in our language. I serve as an elected official for my people, as a councilwoman, hereditary drumkeeper for the Women's Society of our people, and a proud grandmother to my granddaughter who's sitting out here, and my nieces, my relatives out here. It makes me feel good to look around and see this younger generation that has stepped up for this particular time. You know, I thought of a lot of things that we need to be speaking of, and of course the ones that are brought up here today are extremely valuable. But what I wrote at the top of the paper is crisis, crisis, crisis. We have so many things and so many ways that we need to go forward right now, but the main thing is to remember that we're standing at a moment. We're standing at a crossroads in this particular era that we were born into, that we don't have time to go through a lot of the legal stances that would ordinarily be a way that we would go forward. And I'm coming from a people who have been forcibly removed, who live now in a territory where the fracking, the extractive industry, the earthquakes because of the fracking, the privatization of the water that is used in the fracking and then polluted and runs down the streams of our land, causing fish kills, causing the air to be poisoned, causing the earth to not be able to regenerate, causing not only humans, but all of those that live on four legs, those with wings, those with fins, and those that live within the earth and the earth herself to suffer. Those are all coming from a particular point, and it is called the extractive industry. So I feel as if our job is much simpler than what we're giving it. You know, when we talk about Article 6 and carbon trading, there would be no carbon trading if it wasn't for the extractive industry. And we cannot allow them to continue to commodify the air itself that you and I are sharing, not only with one another, but with those with roots deep in the ground, those green things that grow and produce oxygen as we produce the carbon that trades the breath for breath. We cannot continue to allow that same industry to say that we're going to build more hydroelectric dams when in our territory they're putting up wind energy, and that is also being commodified with carbon trading and carbon sequestration. We have had 10,000 earthquakes since 2009 that are human-made, man-made earthquakes. Never in my young lifetime, when I was young, would I have ever put man-made and earthquakes together. But now the earth herself, you know, I was told in ceremony that the earth could just shrug her shoulder and humankind would be shaken free. And now she's doing that as a result of what humankind is doing to her. We have forgotten the natural order of things, and so that's where we need to be right now, is to look back to go forward. How are we going to go forward without looking at the indigenous people and the traditional knowledges that have been held for generations? How we Ponca people are going to have to go forward. One of the directions that we've taken is not only to try to implement, hi Ariel, the Declaration on the Rights of Indigenous People and to bring that into focus within our own territory, but to redo our Constitution that was made to destroy us by the United States of America, by the government that has killed 100 million indigenous people in its own territory and now is seeking to go out into the rest of the world and kill the indigenous knowledges there, so that humankind not only is endangering itself, but it's endangering all of those silent ones without voices. The water herself is in danger. How will we live without her? How will we live without the sacred air? How can we say that it's okay to do Article 6 and endanger human rights when we haven't even thought about the rights of nature itself? I saw a beautiful sign one day that said, "We are not protecting nature, we are nature protecting itself." And that only makes sense when one thinks about the sacred systems of life that we're all part of. While we're busy making signs, while we're busy making policies, while we're busy making words that go on pieces of paper, another million species are ready to be going extinct. And how do we exist without them? What will we eat? What will we breathe? What will we drink? So we have to reach out beyond the natural ways that we have always lived. We have to go to the streets as well. We have to raise our voices in civil society in every state. I admire Chile and what's going on there, and I thank you very much for putting us here in this position where we have to talk about civil society and the contributions that the activists there have made that brought us to this point, to this imperialist state that put Columbus on our shores, that brought the doctrine of discovery into our territories, where we have been subjugated to a point that we are suffering environmental genocide from the extractive industry. So when we talk about the things like all these articles, they're important because we have to stop them, but at the same time, we have to make sure that not only are we educating ourselves about what these things contribute in our own individual territories, but we have to reach out and we have to support the indigenous communities around us. We have to support the sovereignty, because if our indigenous relatives are sovereign, we will protect those people around us as well, the farmers, the ranchers. We can't support the mega farms anymore. We have to go back to our original ways because they're destroying our plants. They're destroying the animals. They're destroying the fish. They're destroying the water. But we can help them have their gardens in their backyard. We can help them have their smaller ways to trade. We can find ways to hold each other up so that human life will continue on Earth, or we will simply become one of the millions of other species that no longer exist on Earth. The greatest gift that I'm going to give my granddaughter is water to drink, air to breathe, and an Earth that continues to love her as she loves our mother, the Earth, the one true mother that we all share. We must find every avenue that we can. In our territory, we have passed regulations that are putting a moratorium on fracking so they can't come into our territory. We've put in a place, in place stopping a resolution against KXL coming into our traditional territory. We have expanded our rights of nature because, again, we are part of nature, not separate from nature. And the rights of nature include all of the things that we've just talked about, and we are asking everyone to pay attention to that movement. That's an undergrowing movement inside the world, is to recognize what has always been and find a way to help fit it into today's society, and to raise our voices, join our hands together, get out into the streets and say, keep it in the ground.